Welcome to Independent Voice, where we're transforming journalism with real talk. Here's our weekly news roundup. In Los Angeles, federal authorities have arrested allegedly undocumented workers in the garment district. Days of protests have followed. In response, the president ordered the National Guard and other military to keep the peace. There's chatter on social media about the lack of coverage on the protests in Los Angeles because no one saw any violent protests that would require armed forces to keep the peace. And that's because there weren't any violent protests until after the National Guard and other military were called. There's reporting that the severity of the protests have been overblown. Residents of LA confirmed that the protests were peaceful until the National Guard was sent in, and that attracted an element on the far left who used protests as an inflammatory speech outlet. There's lots of citizen journalism coverage and video about the Los Angeles ICE raids and protests, and some of it is good, as well as updates from social media accounts from the governor, mayor, and other elected officials. Be aware of any unbiased coverage that takes a side or gives opinions that try to convince instead of allowing you to make up your own mind. The latest in LA is that California Governor Newsom appeared on Midas Touch, where he spoke about the lawsuit filed against the president, unlawfully calling in the Guard and military, which by all accounts inflamed peaceful protests into something more dangerous. The radical fringe who set the car on fire does not represent the majority of legal immigrants raising awareness to their rights being infringed. There's been a response on social media of people asking where the National Guard was on January 6th when far-right activists stormed the U.S. Capitol building. We have a correction to the food ration distribution in Gaza story from last week. It was reported that some of the killings of citizens were the fault of terrorist group Hamas. We'll be watching for developments in this ongoing story. Teenager Greta Thunberg attempted to sail into Gaza as a protest for the supposed abuse of Palestinian people. Israelis intercepted her ship for her own safety and sent her back home. When asked, Thunberg refused to watch the October 7th videos of the Hamas attack on Israel that started the war. It is so difficult for journalists to remain professional and unbiased. I've done 20 episodes of Independent Voice weekly shots in 20 weeks, and I've experienced the challenge for myself. As I take a break and assess the possibility of continuing producing in this weekly format and seeing what could possibly scale, I welcome feedback from any viewers. Thanks for watching. Shout out to all the amazing reporting from these vetted, verified, and fact-checked sources of news. Still, as far as we can see, the websites and online presence of traditional news outlets and journalists trained in a traditional way are still mostly the only sources for any real substantiated reporting of news. We're here for giving an independent voice to all through uncensored, decentralized media, however, so be sure to send any new news organizations who fact-check in a bibliography our way. Thank you for watching. Ciao.